Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome to another Pride and Grit Spouse Spotlight. I am excited to have you join me today and meet someone new to me. So sometimes I know the spotlight guests, and sometimes I don't, and it's super fun for me when maybe I don't know them and I get to learn about them along with you. So today I am excited to introduce you to Amalee Bingham, and she's going to talk a little bit about her military spouse path, her business path, and how those two things are working together right now. So, welcome to the Pride and Grit Spouse Spotlights. We're happy to have you join us today.
Hi, yes, I'm happy to be here.
So, tell us if someone doesn't know you, and you and I haven't had a chance to meet before, so this is super fun for me. Tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of your military spouse journey.
My name is Amalee Bingham, and I've been a military spouse for just 2 years, so not too long. We're currently stationed in Fort Hood, Texas, and we have had a great experience there. We like it a lot. In addition to being a military spouse, I have a small business that I recently started. And so that's been a fun journey, especially, in relation to military life.
Yep.
And yeah, that's where we are now.
So in your years and your time at Fort Hood, is where else have you been besides Fort Hood?
We've just been Fort Hood and Fort Benning.
Okay, so a little bit of
in Georgia.
experience, a little bit different. So, what would you say at this point so far would be the thing that you have found the hardest? And then, what would be the thing that you have found to be kind of the blessing of being a military spouse and living the military life?
Yes, so I think there's two things that kind of teeter on a challenge and a blessing. Uh,
There's a few of those.
and they both have to do with contentment. So, contentment in my career and then contentment in my community. That's been a challenge. I guess I'll start with just the idea of community. So, finding community is a difficult challenge, and then like even finding a community that kind of understands where I'm coming from has
Hmm.
been a challenge. Um, and then just being content sometimes with maybe I don't have a community that fully understands me, but realizing that, that doesn't mean I'm totally alone.
Yep.
And being content when that's kind of like what shapes my community, but then also realizing that in the, military world, there's people everywhere. And so sometimes you do find people who understand what you're going through
Hmm.
and just embracing that community during that season or that time that you have them and, letting those relationships carry you through. Um, and then contentment in my career, just because so the nature of my husband's career is, as we all know, very, you know, not predictable and and all over the place sometimes, which means for my career, it needs to be super flexible and just finding contentment and flexibility of my career and, viewing that not as a negative limitation, but like as
Hmm.
an opportunity to be creative and ingenuitive.
Well, and I'm curious, like when for you, did you come into military life, having a little bit of sort of professional experience beforehand, or have you kind of had to dive into military life and dive into kind of carving out your professional identity at the same time?
Right. Yes. So yeah, I didn't come from a military background. I did move a lot around a lot growing up, but at the same time, yeah, like you're saying, right when I got married was also kind of like right after I graduated college. So it was
Okay.
also the time that I was carving out kind of like my, professional, what am I going to do,
Right.
life and, also, managing expectations. I think I came into it all kind of expecting that, okay, my first job is going to be, something that I'm super passionate about and that I, typical naive post college, but and then even just coming into the military community, I kind of didn't really have too much experience, but I kind of had this idea that, I was going to have a community within the military
Mm-hmm.
right that
Mm-hmm.
was going to be supportive and encouraging. And not to say I haven't found that now, but it did take,
Yeah.
I mean, finding a community takes a while in general, but then when you're in the context of the military, when maybe you don't have as much time in one place, like we were in
Right.
Fort Benning for just a few months. And so, those relationships
Hmm.
had passed, and that's hard.
Yeah, I think there is this perception because I've heard this from, sort of my non-military circle before about I think there's this like perception that those friendships and that community is just instant. You just like show up and all of a sudden, they're everybody's there and they're ready to help carry you when you need it. And certainly to your point, like I think that's true, but it does take cultivating, it does take engagement and effort and sometimes in those shorter spans of when we're at a duty station, I think sometimes at least for me it's hard to it's like this year we're only here for a year and it's like oh like how much do I want to invest. It's hard to kind of put myself out in full force knowing it's such a short amount of time, and so then that community isn't there. So it is always there, but it does still need that cultivating and that effort to really make it something where it's something where you're giving as much as you're getting. So yeah, it's an interesting, I think, misnomer, if you will, about military life and about how easy it is to just pop to a new place and instantly have a community. It's like, it's not always
Right,
quite that easy.
right. And I don't know, even just balancing, like if you do know that you're only there for a short time, there's a tendency, I think, to kind of like, oh, I'm not going to be here for that long, kind of just like turn inward
Oh,
and
absolutely.
branch out. But I think, I don't know, even if you're in one place for a short amount of time, like that time is not in vain. And those relationships
Yeah.
that you strive to invest in and put yourself out there is not in vain. And I think that's
No.
one thing I really learned.
Well, and I think the beauty is that you really never know where that special connection is going to come from. And
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend this morning who was one of those 1 year duty stations, and she's in I don't know Singapore, I think. I'm not sure where, I don't remember where she is right now, but she's not in the States.
Yeah.
And and there's still this connection and there's still this support, and that was just that 1 year. So you really never know where some of those special people are going to come from. So you're so right. You got to do it anyway. And I think it gets easier. I think it gets easier with each time to kind of go in with 2 feet and see the benefit of doing that. So you guys are at Fort Hood and you're then trying to figure out, okay, now what do I do? What do I do professionally here? And so what did that look like and what kind of led you down the path that you are now, with your business?
Yeah. So I started off when we moved here. I just got a job that it was just kind of like a random job that I applied for. It wasn't necessarily like in my, major career field, but it was something that like I still enjoyed doing. And so I was doing that for about a year and coming to a point and when I was just not feeling challenged
Mm-hmm.
and I just wasn't feeling, I don't know, there was nothing necessarily about the job itself that I didn't
Sure.
like. It was just, lacking luster or
This
whatnot. And
this
so
isn't it.
but I was faced with just the thought process of, why exactly do I not want to work here anymore? Is
Mm-hmm.
it because, I don't like the work environment and I don't like the work, or is it because I'm like lacking contentment and I'm just not, fighting for that?
Right.
I think it was the latter. I think what I really was learning is to be content, even if I'm not doing maybe like what I'm super passionate about or what is like necessarily like my unique giftings.
Mm-hmm.
So I was having trouble because I was just viewing the job that I was in at the time as not important or not of value because I didn't think that I was utilizing my gifts and passions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just realizing that that's a lie and like that's not true just because sometimes you're going to be in a season or a position where this doesn't feel like what you want to do. It doesn't feel like you're calling, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're failing or you're missing out on anything. I think there's a lesson in contentment. But with that being said, at the same time, we are, created with unique gifts and passions. And I think like pursuing those, like, I think if we're created to, enjoy certain things, that we should pursue them if we have the opportunity. And so, just kind of keeping the idea of like fighting for contentment in my mind while also wanting to pursue, something
Mm-hmm.
that was more my wheelhouse. I started my own business. So, how that kind of came about is I was looking, for a job and looking for other jobs, but not really finding anything that would work well with my husband's
Mm-hmm.
schedule and just like training cycles and just, I mean,
Sure.
even, moving, every few years. And so, um, anyway, that kind of limitation, I guess, kind of forced me to be creative and a little bit more ingenuitive. And so I wanted to create a business that I could kind of take anywhere,
Yeah.
do from anywhere, and then also was more in line with what I was interested in. So I created Hazel House, which is a web design studio for creative small businesses and individuals. Um, and that's just been a joy just because it's kind of like the perfect intersection of flexibility and
Mm-hmm.
then like a creative challenge and then a way to just serve others. I just think it's really important, your web presence online is kind of like a first impression.
Sure.
And I just have like a heart for small businesses and the people and individuals behind them. I just really enjoyed getting to know. So I still have the other job that I was talking about before, and I
Mm-hmm.
still enjoying that job. But I think that season in between kind of there and when I started Hazel House, my business now, was a challenging season because I was wrestling with these thoughts of, what if I am in this job for the whole duration of my stay at Fort Hood?
Right.
Like, does that mean I missed out? Does that mean I failed? And I don't know, just fighting comparison with other
Mm-hmm.
people. Um, so anyway, and then also realizing that like it was a privilege and such a blessing to be able to start this other business, especially in the current season that we're in, because I'm not able to work, with, COVID-19 and all that. So a business from home is going to
Right.
be perfect. It was really perfect timing.
Right.
And anyway,
Yeah, it's so interesting because I think I've I've seen military spouses approach that challenge multiple different ways. Like you said, like for some it's um, being content with a job that maybe doesn't fully utilize the skills they know they have. For some, it's doing that, but also branching out into this other outlet that allows them to feel like they're kind of fulfilling that side of who they are. And then I think for another group, it's kind of going headfirst into that other, creative outlet, and really chasing that passion. So it's always really, I find it really interesting to kind of see how people are approaching it and
yeah.
what are the things that really send them in one direction or the other. And I imagine it kind of changes. It works for you right now at Fort Hood, and at the next duty station, you could decide to shift it. You could decide to put all your kind of efforts into your web design, or you could find the perfect job and that feels like it meets your skill sets, and you could, do that. So I think to your point, like that's the beauty of the flexibility is that as you go to each place, you've got different things to draw from to kind of create a path that's going to work in that new duty station.
Right, right. And that's why I think the lesson of contentment really also plays into that because I can be content in having this one job or pursuing my passions head on or, balancing both at the same time. I think if I'm, I don't know, fighting for contentment, and I think it is a continual fight,
Mm-hmm.
then, you know, maybe my circumstances aren't the, happiest and, most ideal, but I can still feel fulfilled and feel joyful.
Yeah, no, and find things for sure.
Yeah.
So, are there certain like as you're thinking through the business, are there certain elements that you're finding that you really really love about not so much the web design piece, but just the creating of a business piece? And are there certain parts that you're like, okay, this this is not my wheelhouse. With I mean, creating a business and being an entrepreneur has so many facets. I continue to find new little corners that, maybe I'm not doing things quite how I maybe should or whatever. There's elements certainly that I love and elements that I kind of pull away from within that, creating a business structure. So what have you found for you are the pieces that you are enjoying about that effort and the pieces that are a little bit harder and not as intuitive?
Yeah. I really enjoyed, I think, well, two things that I didn't realize. I guess social media plays a huge impact in, starting a business. And also, so that's probably one of my like joys. I think social media has been just really fun to create and engage with. And through social media, just discovering the larger community, which I didn't even know about
Mm-hmm.
until this, of military spouse, small business entrepreneurs. That community has just been such like a joy
Mm-hmm.
to into and be a part of, and just meeting people. And so creating, I think, the social media side of the business, and then entering into that community, and that's just like opened a door that I didn't, think about, has been like a really cool, unexpected joy.
Yeah,
Um,
I totally agree with that.
yeah. And then, but I think one challenge, also maybe didn't expect would be as intense as like the legal side of business. That's not my wheelhouse. And so, yes, but at the same time, being able to find people in the military,
Right.
small business community that is their wheelhouse, and
Yep.
partnering with them, and trying to work all that out. So,
Yeah, I mean, I continue to be amazed at the number of, military spouses. Like, we literally are everywhere.
yeah,
Certainly within that entrepreneurial space, there's experts in every topic that happen to also be male spouses. And I love that. And I love being able to be a part of some of these organizations that kind of bring all that under an umbrella. So it's a lot easier for people to find and connect with those individuals. At the
yeah,
end of the day, like, we love supporting each other. So it's an easy win for both to be able to partner up. So yeah, I'm with you though. Legal is definitely not my thing. Yeah. So for your business, are there certain kind of niches you're looking to work with, or have you kind of found a specialty? Or are you trying to focus more on military businesses or not? Or tell us a little bit more about how that would align with maybe an effort that one of our listeners is or viewers is in right now.
yeah. So I'm kind of aiming it towards creative small business or creative individuals. So I mean, that ranges from photographers, event planners. I've done like woodworking, so anything that's kind of like a creative. Just because I find that like that mindset behind like a creative craft is kind of like what I want to put into my business. Like I think, as far as for me, web design, I think, is this weird balance of being creativity with kind of like nerdy
Yeah.
HTML, CSS
Technical.
stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
Anyway, just I think where I can find common ground with other business owners is kind of like the creative side. But and then I think being a military spouse or member of the military community veteran is like an added plus. I think if I could get both of those, that would be
Right.
a,
That's your ideal customer.
that's a very very ideal. But I mean broadly, just any creative small business or individual.
Sure. Okay. And so if folks were interested in finding out more and talking to you, where would be the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, so Instagram, at Hazel House, and then we also have a website, hazelhouse.com. So those are the two I think that would be easiest
Awesome.
to contact me through.
Fabulous. Well, is there
Yeah,
anything else you wanted people to know before we hop off? I'm glad you came to hang out with us today.
of course. Yeah, this has been great. I think just in closing, the final thing is, the fighting for contentment, choosing to have a positive attitude for all of this, and then also, striving for community. I think I'd be remiss to not mention that, like, for me personally, the one thing that's kind of like broadened my understanding and helped me get through it all is just a relationship with the Lord. And so I think that's something that you can carry with you wherever you are, in any situation. Um, and I really think that knowing more of who He is has really changed my perspective and really freed me to just, be deeply rooted wherever I am, even if that's for a short amount of time, and trust that, if I'm not doing something that I'm super passionate about, that's not in vain, and that's not, I don't know, wasted. So,
Yeah, no, and there's a time for everything, right? And to your point, there's lots of different seasons and lots of different ways to make it, to make a path in that season, and it doesn't always have to look the same. And to your points earlier, making sure you're kind of building that community around you and having something that helps keep you connected, whether that's your community or your faith or whatever
yeah,
it is that kind of gives you that positive perspective, I think is how we all kind of keep our head above water and make sure we feel like we're continuing to move forward.
exactly.
So No, I appreciate that. All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate you joining us.
Of course, it's been great.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this spotlight. We hope you enjoyed that, and we will see you next Wednesday on the next one. Have a great week.